It's been a little while, my friends, since the last update for World Restructuring. And World Restructuring, last time, it crashed and burned immediately. They added the new system into the game on reset. I was excited. There was like 1,500 people watching. Grouch was with us to experience an intense EU reset. I was in queue for 3 hours and the system was utterly broken. So I think, that had to be reevaluated and shut down pretty quickly. A little bit rough there. But we now actually have the next piece in the puzzle, the next step towards alliances and world restructuring has now been announced. Let's see what we actually have here, my friends, okay? We've got some news and a few other bonus little quality of life upgrades here as well. So, a lot of fun stuff here as well, guys. World vs. World seeing a bit of development that it so very much deserved. Right, hi all. On September 24th, we attempted to run the first live beta for the World Restructuring System. A long-awaited moment. As most of you are probably aware, it didn't go exactly as we planned. Yeah, it broke completely. We're back today to share our post-mortem of the event. Yeah, that's very accurate, very astute. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, a post-mortem is a process by which a development team reflects on an event, release, outage, etc., and identifies what went well and what could have gone better. Well, I mean, I think it working in any way would be a start there, so I think we can kind of, I can evaluate that for ArenaNet. The goal is to identify process improvements that can be applied to future efforts. We're taking some creative liberty with the format to make it a bit more accessible to readers, but we hope you enjoy the look behind the curtain. Oh, I love to see it. Give me the details. In this post, we'll provide a summary of the beta attempt and an overview of the issues we ran into and share what we learned. At the very end, we'll discuss our plans for the next beta. Before we jump in, though, we do want to clarify that the brief login outage that impacted the EU servers just prior to the attempt was unrelated. That's at least one fan theory debunked. Oh, they shut it down. There it is. Okay, let's take a look. Let's see what really went wrong then, shall we? At 10 a.m. Pacific time on Friday, September 24th, we enabled the World Restructuring feature during the weekly European World vs. World reset. Reset is when players are removed from World vs. World, matchups are reconfigured, and scores are reset. Switching to World Restructuring at reset ensured a clean slate for the start of the beta. Very sensible. World Restructuring was successfully enabled for Europe on the live game. That's, putting it a little strongly, our first hurdle. But almost immediately, we started receiving reports that some players were being placed on the incorrect teams. In fact, it was even more than this, guys. There were, like, loads of maps being created. People were on maps completely alone, with, like, 3 people and literally no one else. Or 40-man Zergs on one side, but no one on the other, and no one else could join with a map queue. There were, like, loads of versions of the maps being spun up, so it was pretty intense. In the movies, this is when the alarms start blaring and the red lights start flashing. The root issue is that some players had stale, bad shard data that wasn't updated before they attempted to join World vs. World. When an impacted player tried to enter World vs. World, their game client would request to enter World vs. World using that bad shard data, causing them to be placed on the wrong map and even assigned the wrong team color. Yeah, and this was reflected in the fact that you would actually end up on, well, completely the wrong team, right? The server names didn't update. That might have been just intentional. I'm not sure if that was actually going to happen either way. But yeah, you'd end up on completely the wrong place there, right? A different, the wrong matchup, the wrong everything, right? It wasn't good. This, coupled with an issue in which the UI was not displaying the correct team names, created mass confusion. It did indeed. Enter issue number 2. No doubt there was a lot of excitement for the beta test. That plus the Friday reset meant that turnout was incredibly high, resulting in some deep map queues. Yeah, you can say that again, buddy. I was in queue for like 3 hours and it wasn't actually that long. The really annoying bug is that I would queue to get in and then the queue would reset because it wouldn't actually let me join and it would reset. So I tried that like 3 times before eventually rage quitting. I did a lot of Edge of the Mists, okay? Naturally, players began entering the overflow map, Edge of the Mist, to kill some time while waiting for the queue. The worst part about this, by the way, is that we got in an instance of Edge of the Mist with no other players in, so we couldn't even fight anyone, and people couldn't join our instance very effectively. Like, the join function wasn't working very well, so if you tried to join on someone, it sometimes wouldn't work, and you just end up in a completely new map there as well. It wasn't good, right? But hey, we got some juicy world XP, guys. Hell yeah. While we were busy troubleshooting the first issue mentioned above, we received a ping from our lead server engineer, okay? Robert, okay, Nekaruk, okay? He alerted us, okay, to the fact a normally large amount of server resources were being used for Edge of the Mist map instances, something like 30 times the normal. Well, I guess that is expected, right? Oh, however, this wasn't because of the increased player activity. There was something more insidious at play. Oh dear, this is epic. I like this. This is an epic story right here. We were seeing the new Edge of the Mist instances being created despite there being plenty of remaining player capacity in previously created map instances. In other words, There were way too many map instances being created compared to the number of active players, which is consuming a large portion of our server resources. Oh no, World vs. World actually destroying Guild Wars 2. Everyone complaining about it was right. Running out of server capacity is a bad thing. Trust me, I think I'll take your word for it. This resulted in a bit of a runaway effect that needed to be manually monitored and addressed. The fact that we didn't know why the instances were being created was worrisome and definitely chipped away at our confidence in being able to resolve the beta issues on the fly. I think every developer has been like, oh no, oh dear, it's dead. We're gonna have to kill it, guys. This actually really sucked because, long story short, and we'll get to this later, they actually completely shut this down. They changed it back to the normal system a few hours after they did this, and I really felt bad for them because this was a really big feature. Players were incredibly excited for this. I think it could have been a really good showcase of the game. But like I said, I nearly had 2,000 viewers on Twitch at the time, actually. So people were really excited about this update. So it really sucked that it flopped. However, I think they'll be able to recover it and kind of replicate that there as well. But yeah, I can imagine that from ANET's perspective, that probably felt super, super bad, right? Like, I like this is definitely a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, upbeat post. I love to see that, you know, they're still mentally intact there as well. But still, it's yeah, it's a fun blog post, right? I like this. I love this stuff. This is really cool, actually. Love the communication in this regard. You know, it's a bit lighthearted, right? A little tongue-in-cheek. Exactly the kind of communication that I personally really enjoy. But yeah, I really hope they're able to actually get back out there and get a proper system going there as well, because it is a very exciting thing. When releasing new content, features, or running beta events, we try to add additional logging. These logs are records of events occurring within a system. They can be used to help ensure the system is working as designed. They can provide insight into any issues we encounter and help with identifying eventual fixes. We have entire servers dedicated to managing all of the logs being generated across the game. Hey, including monthly AT finals, apparently. Watch out for that one, guys. Well, on this day, those servers met their match. Oh no! An error was being thrown by Battle Server, the new World Restructuring server, at such a high rate that it started to stress our logging infrastructure. So they had so many errors. The red button that was the red like LED, the red light that was saying, "Hey, error, by the way." The red light was exploding. There were too many errors. That's not good, guys. Okay, that's bad. These log servers are critical to operating Guild Wars 2. So this was, I love the language here. Okay, this was very unsettling to say the least. You know, it's hard to believe, but the 4 brief paragraphs of text above describe roughly 2 hours of events, and all while the play experience in World vs. World in Europe had seriously degraded. Really? Like, isn't the game was totally unplayable and they call it seriously degraded? I love this stuff. Wow. They need to write more. Who wrote this? Okay, like this. What a gamer. I love to see it. This is just that very kind of dry wit, that dry, like, sarcastic tone that is just, it's so enjoyable to read, okay? Robert, you're a legend, mate, okay? What an absolute legend. Love to see it, right? Where did I, where do we, okay. Our team huddled together and mapped out, dude, the role play, dude, I'm getting into this. I'm getting, ooh. Our team huddled together and mapped out 2 possible paths forwards. See, they were stacking like a World versus World zone, right? They were really in on the World Restructuring alliance, and they stacked in real life to share boons. Option A was to implement a handful of short-term mitigations in an attempt to keep the beta running, aka the long shot. This would have included deploying a blank build to the live game, which would require players to log out and download a minor client update. This would force a data refresh on any player impacted by the stale data issue we mentioned earlier, which would then assign them to the correct team. We should note that we believe this would have addressed the issue, but we would have no way of testing it before attempting it. Yeah, so it's kind of like, do you just want to like shut it down and try again, or just try and kind of YOLO fix it? So they thought it might have worked, but again, I guess they weren't totally sure, and it could have also caused other problems potentially, right? Like, yeah, it might have fixed that one issue, but maybe that wasn't the only other issue. Maybe it would have broken something else instead. Maybe something else wasn't working quite right. So, yeah, it could have helped, but maybe not entirely. Oh, And that's exactly what they say here. Additionally, there was no guarantee that the other issues wouldn't continue to manifest over the course of the beta week, as new players logged in to participate in the beta. We'd also likely need to perform the same blank build update after NA reset just a few hours. Yeah, and that's obviously not ideal. Like double client patch, probably. Well, that's just not a very clean solution. It's not horrible, but it may be, you know, ANET maybe not super into that sort of thing. In this scenario, we would have also disabled the edge of the mist map for the entire beta week to mitigate the server. Oh yeah, because it was like making a million edge of the mist copies there as well. So that would also have been unfortunate, especially given the much larger queuing problems there as well. We found a fix for the logging issue, but would have taken some time to roll the change out on Friday light note. Yeah, oh, they're trying to get that overtime in, hell yeah. During which our logging servers would continue to get pummeled. Nice, like getting those CPU cycles going big. Option B was to prematurely end the beta. This, of course, was the option we ultimately decided on. There was simply too much risk and too many unknowns associated with option A. Once we made the call to end the beta, we were able to seamlessly revert back to world linking after a quick cycling of the world versus world maps. Ultimately, I think that's the right call too. Alliances, I think maybe people got the wrong idea with world restructuring. I think people think that this is like something that's happening really, really soon. Realistically, I'm not expecting world restructuring and alliances to actually be fully and permanently implemented into the game until post expansion, right? Like world restructuring maybe like a little bit or with the expansion, but certainly alliances are going to be a long-term feature. I think it could even be potentially a year before we actually see alliances in the game. This is a very complicated and massive game mode rework, so it's certainly not going to be something that you see rushed out there. And then you've got to talk about reward structures, you've got to talk about additional systems, potential other things like, you know, changing the way world versus world works with, you know, with siege, like with skirmishes, with some kind of season, right? Like loads of other systems, guild rankings, right? Like a global guild chat, like an alliance chat or whatever. It's an incredibly expansive rework, so don't expect this coming like super soon, to be honest. Later that day, after a bit of a breather, the team reconvened to conduct our post-mortem and get the body out, get it on the slab, create an action plan for the issues we experienced. Here are the biggest wins of the day. All right. World restructuring technology worked at scale, even if it didn't seem like it did. This was a huge milestone and gave us a lot of confidence in the technology behind world restructuring. For every player that was misassigned to a team, there were plenty more that were properly match-made. Hey, well, we had that at least, right? Because we were able to successfully enable world restructuring, we were able to collect enough data during the 2-hour beta to help us narrow in on where these issues exist in code. Seeing how these issues manifested on live also helped us better understand how we can improve our internal testing process to better catch world restructuring issues in development. Large-scale server features, especially for a system as bespoke as world restructuring, can be tricky to test completely in the development environment. And that's, well, because there's simply, you just don't have that many testers, right? Like when this was happening on reset, you had thousands of players trying to log in, and that's very difficult to replicate in a closed testing environment. So yeah, exactly right. And I guess this is actually no surprise, right? That they probably had loads of data, like people spamming in there trying to get in there. So it's very good that they were able to actually fix it and that the broad concept behind it actually worked pretty effectively there as well. That is the point of a beta. Beta is beta. It is here to be fixed. It is here to be improved, right? And to find out what's going wrong there. And if they can actually test things easier now, that's perfect. That sounds like a really, really good outcome because it was never going to be permanent anyway. And hey, maybe we'll actually get like a nice juicy bit of world restructuring testing coming up very, very shortly. Next, the matchmaking algorithm used for the first beta created an incredibly even distribution of players and guilds across teams. In the world linking system, we can see up to a 50% difference in player activity between worlds. In the first beta, the largest difference between two teams was just 2%. Wow. Okay, that is pretty good. And that is actually really good. God damn. So in other words, that would create a very, very fair. And when they say between teams, they mean between teams in a matchup, essentially. So in other words, they're saying that right now, in a matchup, teams can be up to 50% more active than another. So in other words, for every, say, hour of world versus world that one team plays, another one will play an hour and a half, which is obviously an extremely unfair matchup, right? A very unfair and skewed matchup. That is insane, actually. That seems to be incredibly effective. So their matchmaking technology, the algorithms they're using here are certainly highly accurate there as well, which is very good. creating balanced matches is the primary goal of World Restructuring. This is quite exciting to see. Yeah, that's really awesome. That means that, you know, World vs. World in general will be a much more even, but also presumably more active environment as well, which is very, very nice indeed. Very, very nice indeed. Very good news. Finally, we were able to successfully roll back to world linking with a few issues once we made the decision to end the beta. This point is more about the fact the team was adequately prepared for the scenario by preparing a detailed runbook in advance for rolling the system back. We tested this process multiple times on our dev servers, but never at the scale seen on the live game. Practice makes perfect. Hey, so they had a backup plan in case it blew up. No surprises there, but hey, I'm glad it worked. Hell yeah, very nice. Not much of a sample size. Well, it's actually it's a pretty hefty sample size, though, because it was able to do that for all of EU with all of the players in the game. I suppose I should explain what this actually means, guys, right? Like, sample size is not actually super relevant here. Alliances might distort that because it allows guilds to join together, but you need to understand what World Restructuring actually does. It's not linking servers together, it's building the servers. And that is to say that the algorithm that built the servers did it very, very well. That's not really a case of even sample size as such, because the sample size is basically the entire player base on the EU. It merged everyone together and made even teams. It's not like, oh, this specific set of matchups will be good, because bear in mind, guys, the matchups will always be like this, right? The matchups will always be computed to be accurate. Obviously, then they can vary as teams perform or like underperform, like get better, get worse throughout the season or whatever it is of World vs. World, like, you know, the block of matchups before the servers get rebuilt again there as well. But it's not really, you know, the sample size here is not super relevant because it's just, you're talking about the effectiveness of the algorithm. The sample size is 1, right? It's made 1 batch of teams, but that's not, they're not commenting on that. They're commenting on the fact that it was able to create very effective, evenly matched teams. Not that, you know, it did it over and over again, right? It's that it worked. It worked in this instance, and in other words, the mathematics is correct, and it will consistently do that. Like, if you ran that 1,000,000 times, it would always give you similarly close teams, because that's what the algorithm does, right? All right, here we go. What's next? There are 10 bugs we've identified as a must fix before we can try another beta, mostly related to addressing the stale data issue detailed above and team names and properly displaying. Oh yeah, I almost thought that was going to be like just a part of the scuffed UI, but I guess not. We've made significant progress on these, but there's still quite a bit of work to be done. As of right now, we're targeting the November 9th release for these fixes, with our next beta week kicking off on November 12th. Oh, pretty soon. Nice, cool. So that's actually, what, in 2 weeks or so? 3 weeks, right? I guess 3 weeks. A little bit more. Very cool, very cool. We'll be making some quality of life changes to World vs. World in the November 9th release. Ooh. So, let's get to the quality of life. Okay, your feedback is clear. Skirmish reward tracks take entirely too long to be. Oh, you're goddamn right. Especially for new players or players who are playing on the 3rd place. Oh, look. You guys don't know how good you've got it. Back in the day, guys, do you know how many pips you got? Okay. For 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That's right, guys. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So if you were on the losing server when skirmish pips came out and you had no rank, you got 1 pip per tick until you got your loyalty pip. Then you got 2 pips per tick. That's right, guys. They actually buffed that by +2 across the board to 3, 4, 5. But it used to be 1 or 2 with loyalty. Okay? So listen, you're already way faster. And it's funny, when I used to play World vs. World back in the day, guys, we would always go on Friday reset until we did Diamond Chest. Right? And I think on day 1, when it actually came out, Silverwing, he was a guy who was relatively new to World vs. World. He played 22 hours straight to get Diamond Chest, because he was a very, very low rank at the time. And obviously, you know, like, you know, he was getting like 2 pips, like 1 pip, 2 pips per tick, just across the board there. So it took him 22 hours, okay, to get that on day 1. It's good content, guys. Right, very, very good content indeed. Right, and we would do that every Friday. We would go like 12-hour resets. And get that diamond chest. But yeah, this is really good. So what they're doing is they're adding +1 for everyone right? So in other words, instead of 3, 4, 5 for third, second, and first, you're going to get 4, 5, 6. That's a big deal, by the way, guys. That's going to really increase the pip count for everyone. And they're also giving a new player a bonus here as well. So in other words, if you don't have like a proper title yet in World vs. World, you get a bonus pip. Now that would obviously obsolete the bonus that you get from getting to rank 150. So they're actually increasing all of the rank pips as well. So in general, everyone in the game is getting 2 extra pips, essentially, broadly speaking, because you're going to get 1 for your placement and 1 extra for your rank. So bronze is now +2, silver is +3, etc., etc., etc. So everyone's getting +2. That's big. That's actually a huge deal, right? Everyone's getting a +2, which is massive. That's going to significantly chop the time. For example, I think right now, if you're 3 pips per tick, how long is that going to take you? 1,450 pips divided by 3 is 483 ticks. That's 2,416 minutes, which is 40 hours. So if you have no rank, right now it will take you 40 hours to get Diamond Chest, but after the patch, that will go down to 30 hours. Okay? So in other words, you're getting a really big bonus there, too. That's really going to shave that down. Very, very nice indeed. Very good change with this stuff. I enjoy that a lot. And of course, hey, it's great for me too, right? Because now I'm going to be up another 2 pips. I typically get like 10 to 11 pips. Now I'm going to be looking at 12 to 13 pips, up to like 16. If I'm going to be commanding, for example. That is, oof. Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's still too slow. And I would expect to see this iterated on here as well. So here's one really big thing, guys, that I'm expecting. I'm expecting pips to be added from active objectives. This is something that ArenaNet talked about a lot, guys. They were talking about this idea of wanting to make participation much more active. I think in the future, it will be, oh, you cap a tier 1 tower, get 3 bonus pips. Tier 2 tower, 5 bonus pips. Tier 3 tower, maybe 10 bonus pips, right? Cap SMC, get 20 bonus pips, for example. Right? Now, I know that that could be abused, but guys, look, every system in World vs. World can be abused. If people really want to, they could literally like farm each other off respawn for Ultimate Dominator. Doesn't mean they're going to do it or that it's a really big issue or a reason to remove Ultimate Dominator, right? So I think that they're very much going to be adding additional pips through active play, through defending, through killing a Dolyak, capping a camp, right? Maybe even killing 100 players, right? Like kill X players, get an extra pip, for example, right? Etc., etc., etc. They did do this though in OS. Yeah, but they could still do it in Borderlands. There's nothing that stops you doing it now. Like if you wanted to, you could literally just like, you could be in Alpine Borderlands and like run at each other over and over again, and just feed into each other at like the fighting spot that people do, like near the South Camp. People don't do that, right? Like, and you could trade, you could even like trade objectives, right? You could trade objectives. The way you do this is by making the game mode competitive. If you make the game mode competitive and, with alliances, then the incentive to abuse the system for rewards is minimized because 1, you're going to get rewarded for winning more than you would for abusing the system. And 2, if you abuse the system, it will probably involve you losing, right? Which is probably not really what people want to do when they're matched up on a certain team. And 3, if it's competitive integrity and you're interfering with that, that's match manipulation and actually against TOS. So you won't want to do that because your account will get deleted too. Boom! Hell yeah. So there it is. We've also been taking a look at the components of the skirmish track and participation system that aren't achieving their intended design goals. In the short term, we'll be experimenting with removing incentives from some unintended gameplay, and we'll be removing the participation grace time granted by repairing structures in World vs. World. We'll also be removing the outnumbered pip bonus, though the outnumbered stat enhancement will remain. You know what, dude? I'm actually going to give a hot take here. Outnumbered is actually a really stupid mechanic. And this is a good change. Why? Because what's it supposed to do? Like, outnumbered is supposed to draw players to a map by incentivizing you to play on that map, right? And attracting new players there. But that's not what it does. Like, if you get outnumbered, you're actually directly incentivized to not tell other players because that means that you'll lose your reward bonus, right? Okay? which is really bad. Like, sure, like extra magic fine, that's pretty cool, right? Extra this, extra that, nothing wrong with that. Extra participation, extra, reward gain, right? That's fine. A bit of extra reward XP, that's not a big deal. But basically making the time gate of the skirmishes faster is a really bad mechanic, And fixing that is a much better idea. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I know it kind of sucks because you could definitely get a lot of extra pips, particularly if you're low on world versus world rank. But honestly, you don't really... Okay, here's the thing, guys. Right? Yeah, it makes you angry to see other players. You never want to be angry to see other players. It's a really bad design, particularly in like in a team game mode. But here's the really important thing, guys. I actually guarantee you, go to world versus world right now and see how many pips you got from outnumbered. Okay, see this, guys? Let's do the maths. So this skirmish, I've got 2,000 pips. I got 110 from outnumbered. So in other words, I had 22 ticks of outnumbered. In total, I've played for 197 ticks. Okay, let's see how many extra pips I would have got from the +2 bonus. 197 times 2, because I'm going to get 2 extra. 1 from the increase to these ones here, like the winning bonus, and then an extra 1 for my rank. I'll have gained 394 pips. In other words, guys, I will have actually, this trading outnumbered for this +2 pip is favorable at nearly 4 times the rate. Okay, so this is actually, you might think, oh no, my pip gain. Wrong. This will actually increase your pip rate on average, very likely. For example, I would have gained an additional, let's go and quickly do the subtraction here, 284 pips this week from that extra +2 bonus on every single tick. So bear that in mind, guys. Just be aware of that. And it makes the gameplay a little bit better because it encourages players to actually go to these outnumbered maps because you still get the bonuses for certain things like participation, and it will also continue to, it won't like disincentivize players from grouping up, which is definitely better. And on average, it will actually complete your skirmish chests a little bit quicker there as well, guys. That's simple as that. And I think that is ultimately a better solution. This is a better solution, guys. You will actually probably get a pretty significant speed up, particularly if you are a lower ranked player, as a newer player to World versus World, completing that skirmish chest. Very, very happy there. I love to see that indeed. Why is +2 better than +5? Because the +2 is permanent and the +5 isn't, right? And it turns out you don't actually have outnumbered that often, but you'll always have a +2, right? Everyone in the game is getting +2 perma at this point. I feel like now you're fucked. No, you really aren't, because you won't always be outnumbered on off hours, because of course if you're playing on off hours, then there are going to be less people, right? There are less people either way. You'll still just, it'll still be the same, right? You'll have outnumbered for the same portion of time and probably get more value out of that +2, right? Plus permanent +5 almost. No, I actually don't think so, because I know that's actually not, I know for a fact that isn't true, because a lot of you guys probably know me as having one of the most degenerate sleep cycles out of anyone. I actually play a lot of World versus World at night, typically around like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. a lot of the time during daily automated tournaments and just, while I'm working basically. And I actually very rarely get outnumbered, even when it's like really deep night. I do sometimes, obviously, don't get me wrong, but it's actually not that common. Not like crazy common there as well. And I guess I might as well quickly address the repair thing. So what was this? So there are a few things that you can do that are kind of bad gameplay to maintain participation. You guys probably recall the ruins thing, like the ruin cap in Borderlands, where there are these little objectives you can capture to give bonus stats. That's what they're for, right? You can hold 3 or more of them and give bonus stats. Well, it turned out that you could actually basically go in and out, and that would give you enough participation to actually maintain pip gain the entire time. It was actually kind of pioneered by Deroyer. Mr. Deroyer Gaming, farming his skirmish tickets, came up with a solution, very AFKable, very good and very effective, in fact, for getting that done there as well. However, this was very, very silly, because it meant that, you'd get rewarded by basically not playing the game and AFKing, so ANET nerfed this. They're doing the same thing with a few other things. And by the way, this will not be the only list, okay? This will not be, this is the beginning, not the end. So they're basically making it so that if you repair a structure, it will give you participation, okay? But it won't be enough to give you like perma participation, right? Like, it will juice you up a little bit, but it won't make it go down any slower. So it will increase your participation, but it will not reset the timer before your participation starts decaying. What players would do, this is particularly on Stone Mist, actually, by the way, guys, because Stone Mist is always getting attacked. So instead of actually bothering to defend it or do anything, what you do is you just repair all the walls. You run around repairing all the walls. Okay, going crazy, right? Doing all that stuff, going berserk, right? And making sure that you never lose participation by doing that. This is really bad for a few reasons. One, you know, it means that you can basically do nothing and have perma participation and perma rewards in the game, which is a bit weird. Two, it also in a way like well, there's another part of this, right? Because it turns out sieging walls is the same. If you're like catapulting SMC or trebbing SMC the entire time, that will also give you participation. So you have this like weird thing where teams can collaborate to AFK, and this is something that players actually do. Like one team, or even on an alt account, you'll treb SMC, and in your other account, you'll be repairing it over and over again, and both those accounts will actually get perma participation. They'll definitely come for this, actually. They will actually... they will come for the sieging thing as well, I think, and it will be that sieging maybe will be the same, so it won't refresh your participation grace timer. It will still give you participation, but it won't prevent it from decaying, or maybe some other kind of like differences from there as well, because sieging's a little bit different, obviously, compared to repairing, because you're inherently destroying something, but still, that is how it is going to be. Boom. Actually, good take, guys, okay? Here it is. There it is. I only play when I'm sure there's an outnumbered. Then you shouldn't be playing world versus world, essentially. Basically, they're trying to eradicate that style of gameplay. The outnumbered change is to eradicate people only playing when there's outnumbered. That is why. They're trying to make the game mode healthier. And having players that only play when there's outnumbered, and therefore being incentivized to not tell other players about this and to not collaborate with other players is inherently unhealthy. So they're purging that playstyle very deliberately, and they're right to do so, because it is very unhealthy. Same with like the repair farming, and same with like the siege farming there as well, like farming participation. It's just unhealthy, bad gameplay, right? It's just not good whatsoever. Yeah, these are great. I actually think these are very, very good changes. And yeah, the whole like the whole outnumbered hunting, again, it's unhealthy, right? Like, you don't want to do that. You want players to actually engage in the matchup and engage in the world versus world game mode, right? Like taking objectives, fighting other players. You don't want people dipping around looking for a buff that's going to make them, you know, able to just, you know, play the game mode less, essentially, because they don't really want to be there. Like, if you don't want to be there, you just shouldn't be there. And if you want to play world versus world, you should engage with that game mode correctly. In the same way that if you're going to play raids, you know, you should play the game mode properly and, you know, give it your all and actually play. You shouldn't just be like running around, right? You know, like if you're doing Veil Guardian, you should be fighting the boss, not picking the mushroom right in the arena because you like the color of the buff, right? That's not what you should be doing. You should play the game mode correctly. It's you know, it's a team game. You should respect your team, respect your players, and also respect the fact that other people want to be you know, in that game mode and playing it correctly there as well. That's how it's supposed to be. Simple as that. There you go. Boom. Great changes there to World vs. World. I really hope we actually see more. You know, I'm actually really happy to see more rewards. More changes to the systems coming. I wasn't expecting to see much until after World Restructuring and Alliances are coming through, but I like this. Maybe we could also see some, you know, potential look at Siege, active rewards, the way Lords work, you know, capturing Tier 3, holding Tier 3, like defense, attacking, right? Maybe we could even see some additional reworks before the full completion of World Restructuring and Alliances. Very happy to see that, and I'm very much looking forward to the next beta. I'll definitely be there on reset with the squad. So if you want to play with me there, guys, on the 12th of November, then get your builds. Hardstuck.gg, get your World vs. World build. Juice up right now, get that prepped, and let's have some fun, guys. You know, I'm really looking forward to really going hard on World vs. World in the coming months and even years as it becomes a cornerstone game mode for Guild Wars 2. So let's make that happen. Very exciting stuff. That's it for today's update. Thanks for reading. And actually, before I kind of sign off on talking about these changes here, actually, I really want to know, wow, what a great article. Now, this was written by Robert, Mr. Robert here, okay, who was also handling the, like, he was talking about the server outage last time. I love it. I love the language here. It's fun. You know, it's fun. It's dry. It's witty, right? It's engaging. It's very well communicated as well. This is excellent. I really cannot sign off on this article without actually really praising how good the communication is here as well. It is written in plain English. You don't need to have a technical understanding to be able to understand that. And that is a good thing here. But it gives the reader enough information and a lot of like deep insight into what they're doing here, their thought process, how they handle things, how their server architecture works there, what's going on there, what actually happened. That is beautiful. I love this. I want to see more of this. Very easy to read, really well structured, fun language. It's got some jokes in there. You know, it's got a few memes, right? It's a little sarcastic, right? I love it. Amazing. What an incredible article there as well. More please for everything. You know, I really hope that wasn't, you know, too arduous to make, but I think this is fantastic. This sort of thing is key in building up a really good rapport and relationship with the player base. And if ArenaNet can continue to do this for other topics, strike missions, maybe even raids, right? PvP, alliances, open world, the story, DX11 with the article that James Fulop wrote there as well previously. Hell yeah, this is amazing. This is absolutely fantastic. Stuff like this. I mean, look, I know this would be greedy, but I'd love something that's like, you know, like one of these every week would be super cool, like super engaging, particularly as, you know, a long-term veteran, big-time fan of the game. I think this stuff is very, very interesting to that, the player base that has been around for a while, even if you're not necessarily a hardcore player. Just as the casual observer, I think this is very fun to read and very engaging. Very well done here. I'm very impressed by ArenaNet in producing this article. Big win for ANET. Nice. Oh, there you go.